Once upon a time, there were two best friends, myself and my friend Tez, in our early 20s. We decided to embark on the ultimate adventure, a 6-week road trip across America from New York to Los Angeles. To save money, I suggested that we sleep in the back of our hatchback. We had a pretty cozy setup, with blankets, sheets, and curtains made from material bought at Goodwill. We were living the dream, sleeping in parking lots, free campsites, and rest areas. Our trip had been going great, and we had met all kinds of people, making many friends along the way. We would take suggestions from other campers, locals, and people we met on where to go next. One night in Arizona, we stumbled upon a free campsite in the woods. We saw an RV parked, and 2 cars further up in the trees. We decided to pull up near the RV, and as we did, a man opened the door. Tez waved, but he just stared at her with a blank expression and then closed the door. We figured he wanted privacy and decided to park further down the road. We were still goofing around, smoking, laughing, and taking silly photos when we noticed a campfire further down the site. We decided to introduce ourselves to the 2 men sitting there. The younger man claimed to be a former park ranger and was very easygoing, and we spent hours talking about our trip and families. The ranger then told us about a bear he claimed to have seen earlier in the forest. Tez didn't believe him, and he pulled out his camera to show her photos of the bear. It was close to the campsite, and we were both a little freaked out. Then, the ranger's expression changed, and his voice sounded cold as he said, "If you get out of your car in the middle of the night, it's not the bear you should be worried about." I was waiting for him to laugh or make a joke, but he didn't. He kept talking about something grabbing us from our car in the middle of the night, no matter how hard we tried to steer the conversation away from it. At this point, the older man was high as a kite and staring at the stars. We just awkwardly laughed and tried to change the subject, but the ranger kept coming back to it. He stood up and walked towards the cooler to get another beer. Suddenly, there was a red dot in the darkness, and it took me a moment to realize that it was a camera. The ranger had taken a photo of us, and I could see the screen on his digital camera lit up. I was shocked and confused, and so was Tez. It was odd that someone would take a picture of us without our permission, especially in the middle of nowhere. I tried to shake it off and make a joke about it, but the ranger's behavior was unsettling. We decided to leave and go back to our car. And as we walked away, the ranger started talking about something grabbing us again. We got into our car, locked the doors, and tried to get some sleep. It was hard to shake off the feeling of being watched. Every time I heard a noise outside, I thought of the ranger and his camera. We both felt uncomfortable and knew we had to leave. The next morning, we woke up early and left the campsite, still feeling uneasy. We didn't talk about the incident much, but we both knew it was a close call. We had met many friendly people on our trip, but this encounter had been different. We realized that not everyone we met on the road was trustworthy, and we had to be careful. As we made our way back to our car, we both felt a chill down our spines. Something about the ranger's words and behavior had unnerved us. As we got into the car, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. We tried to shake off the feeling and settled into our makeshift bed for the night. We had done this so many times before, it was routine. But this time, we were both restless. Every sound seemed amplified. Every rustle in the bushes or snap of a twig made us jump. As I lay there, trying to calm my racing thoughts, I noticed a faint glow outside the car. I nudged Tez awake, and we both peered out the window. At first, we couldn't make out what it was, but as our eyes adjusted to the darkness, we could see that it was a flashlight. Someone was outside, shining a light into our car. We lay there frozen, not daring to move or make a sound. The light disappeared, and we heard footsteps receding into the distance. We both breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that it was just some curious camper who had stumbled upon us. But then we heard it, a soft scratching sound, like someone running their fingernails along the side of the car. We held our breath, listening intently. The scratching continued, growing louder and more insistent. Tez whispered that we should start the car and drive away, but I hesitated. What if it was just an animal? What if we were overreacting? But the scratching continued, and then we heard a faint whisper, "Let me in." My blood ran cold. I turned to Tez, and she looked as terrified as I felt. We fumbled for the keys and started the car. As we peeled out of the campsite, we saw a figure standing in the darkness, watching us go. We didn't stop until we reached the nearest town, and we didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, we went to the police and reported what had happened. They took our statement, but there was little they could do. We had no idea who the ranger or the other campers were, and we had no proof that anyone had been trying to break into our car. We cut our trip short and headed back home, shaken and unnerved by the experience. It wasn't until months later that we learned the truth. The campsite where we had stopped had been the site of a notorious murder years earlier. A family of 4 had been camping there when they were attacked and killed by an unknown assailant. The killer had never been caught, and the case remained unsolved. The locals called it the campsite killer, and some even believed that he still haunted the area, seeking out new victims. It was said that he would lure campers to the site with stories of bears or other dangers, only to prey on them in the night. Tez and I had unknowingly stumbled into the killer's hunting ground, and we were lucky to have escaped with our lives. It's a lesson we'll never forget, to always be aware of our surroundings, and to trust our instincts when something feels off, because sometimes the things that go bump in the night are all too real.
When I was 16, I went on a road trip to Florida with my parents and my best friend, Cal. We were driving for the whole day and decided to stop at a cheap motel in West Virginia to rest for the night. It was around 10 p.m., and being 2 teenage girls who had been sitting in the car for hours, we were still full of energy. So we decided to explore the motel and stumbled upon a group of guys with thick southern accents. They tried to flirt with us, but it was awkward, and we quickly realized they were just normal teenage boys. Cal came up with the excuse that she had accidentally microwaved her phone last month, so we didn't exchange numbers with them and went our separate ways.
Cal and I continued exploring the motel floors and decided to race each other down the first floor's main hallway, right next to the lobby. We were laughing and having a good time until we ran past a room with the door wide open. All we saw were shiny things all over the floor and a big blobby figure in the middle of it. We got to the end of the hallway and asked each other what the hell that was. We snuck back around the corner to get a closer look and found a really obese man lying on his stomach with his chin resting on his hands. He had silverware and tiny metal trinkets all around him. When he noticed us, he smiled weirdly, but didn't move anything besides his torso to face us. We ran back to my parents' room, but they were out getting food, so we freaked out and made fun of the situation for about 15 minutes. We decided to go back down to the first floor using the stairway from the second floor, and we ran into the same group of boys from earlier. One of them asked if we saw the weird guy down there, and we said yes. The boys started freaking out and told us that their little brother had been walking down the hallway from their room on the other end of the first floor to the vending machines. The weird guy called out to him and tried to stop him, offering him one of his strange trinkets and asking him to come into his room. Luckily, the kid had the sense to say no, but we wondered what the guy was trying to do. We hoped the hotel manager stepped in, and the guy closed his door. I also hoped that the kid's parents complained or called the cops. Cal and I nicknamed that guy the Wiggling West Virginia Spoon Man, and it made for a wild story that nobody believed when we got back to school after break in the spring. Looking back, I realize how messed up that situation was, and it's scary to think about what could have happened if the kid had gone into that room. I learned that sometimes it's better to trust your instincts and stay away from strange people or situations.